I think there's a little bit of a chance that they not only announce the next generation vehicle, but they actually start manufacturing the next generation vehicle. And maybe we even get a delivery before the end of 2024. Just the Dojo part of Tesla worth more than NVIDIA. And NVIDIA is $1 trillion company. So Dojo alone may be $1 trillion company. Not to say that it's $1 trillion company now, but in 2 years.
One of the nice things about the Tesla investor community is we have a very wide range of people with different opinions, different strengths, and different investing styles. One of those that I like to catch up with once in a while is Warren Redlich. He often has a different way of thinking, and his conclusion oftentimes can go against the conventional wisdom. Today, we're going to review his thoughts on the Tesla bot, the $25,000 compact car, and Dojo, among others. Previously a lawyer, Warren is well known in the Tesla retail investor community. He's a big investor in Tesla and Amazon, and not just any old investor. Warren is what we call an Uber bull for Tesla. Welcome, Warren. Thank you for joining me again.
Thank you so much for having me. By the way, technically, I am still a lawyer.
No, okay, gotcha.
I try to get out, but they keep dragging me back in.
Okay, gotcha. And I know you're starting your own electric vehicle pod car business, and so people should follow you and find out the progress of that. So, you've been a long-term Uber bull. We've covered this quite a bit. And one of the things that you do differently than others is you'd have these different models that you've created a long time ago, like the battery model and others. And so I wanted to ask you, what do you think is still the limiting factor for Tesla in 2024? Is it the batteries, or is it potentially slowing down in demand that some people are saying might be the case? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I don't think there's a battery shortage right now for Tesla for, let's say, Model Y, Model 3, Model S. Model S and Model X they're not significant right now in terms of volume. Cybertruck, I think it's really manufacturing the Cybertruck that's the limiting factor. It seems like they have enough batteries for the volume of Cybertrucks they can produce. And then I think there's an ample supply of 2170 cells from South Korea. There's a huge supply of lithium iron phosphate cells from CATL and BYD. So I don't think batteries are really the limiting factor. The limiting factor for 2024 is probably, since Model Y is the highest volume model, is just that they're making so many Model Ys that it's the best-selling vehicle in the world. I think it might actually be a demand issue that if they could bring the price of Model Y down further, which they may be able to achieve, that will increase volumes. If Model 3, the refresh or new Model 3, or some people call it Highland, I'm not sure why people call it that, the new Model 3 could sell more, again, if they can bring the prices down, which there's various ways they may be able to bring the prices down. If they're able to bring prices down, that increases the market that can afford to buy the vehicles. So I think that it's really like, can they get costs of manufacturing down so that they can get prices down so that they can get more people to buy the cars?
Okay. Yep. That sounds right. And then in 2024, what are you expecting that is going to have what's the next thing that's going to come? And, are we waiting for a long time, or are you going to expect to see, of course, energy? Is it going to surprise, or is it already built into the stock price? Are you expecting that the bot demo is going to show up and people are going to start believing that that's a real thing? What is it? Is it the $25,000 car? Are they going to do a reveal? Is that going to be the exciting thing? Is it Dojo? What are you looking forward to in 2024?
Well, there's the two. I think Megapack will grow. Tesla Energy will grow in 2024. A lot of that depends on interest rates. If interest rates come down, then more people buy solar, more people invest in battery storage devices, and you see that grow a bit. But I think, Megapack is ramping. I believe Woowa said that they started building the next Megapack factory in Shanghai. So they said it's growing 150 to 200% a year. So we're looking at, I forget the number. We're looking at maybe 16 gigawatt hours to 20 gigawatt hours this year. So we may see 40 to 50 gigawatt hours, terawatt. Sorry, is it gigawatt? I think it's gigawatt hours. So that's going to grow fast. But I don't think Wall Street is really I don't think most investors are basing their investment hypothesis on Megapack. I think they're missing that story. And then I think the big thing, my guess is that we're going to see something more about the next gen vehicle in 2024. And that potentially will be a big driver of stock valuation. So there's a question. what is the projected retail price of the next generation vehicle? So a lot of people have been talking about $25,000. I don't think a $25,000 vehicle, if it's significantly smaller than a Model 3 and lower performance, is going to be that much of an exciting vehicle. If Model 3 is already selling for 35,000, it's not that much of a drop in price. And when Drew Baglino and Elon were talking about the next generation vehicle, they said half the cost. Well, half the cost of a $35,000 vehicle will be a $17,500 vehicle. And by the way, the $35,000 is a price of US inventory Model 3s. I believe that the selling price of a Model 3 in China might be around $35,000 or less. So if they come up with a sub $20,000 price point for the next generation vehicle and you get a $7,500 tax credit, that's a pretty low price for a vehicle. So we're in late 2023. Elon said they're pretty far along in the manufacturing process, developing the pilot line for the next gen vehicle. I don't know, what stage they're at. And what's his name? Walter Isaacson in the biography talked about Elon walking the line in the summer of 2023, back in, I don't know if it was May, June, or July. So they've been developing that manufacturing line for a while. So I think there's a little bit of a chance that they not only announce the next generation vehicle, but they actually start manufacturing the next generation vehicle. And maybe we even get a delivery before the end of 2024. And if, again, I tend to be overly optimistic. I have something of a history of being overly optimistic, but sometimes they sandbag. And given everything they said, I think there's a chance that we see significant developments, significant news about the next gen vehicle. And I think that's a big driver. The other big driver is if FSD crosses the threshold. There's this threshold where self-driving says, when all of a sudden they say, you don't have to pay attention anymore, no more nags. They've talked about that. Elon hinted at January, but I think he's, that's Elon time. And, how long is it until they say, okay, the car can drive by itself, we don't need a human in it? And, are we making progress towards that goal? Because when FSD becomes a reality, that, in other words, the car can drive itself and you don't need to supervise it, that's the game changer for everything. That brings us from the battery revenue model that you mentioned at the beginning into the robotaxi model where, the numbers just get insane.
Okay, wait, there's so much you just said there. So I want to talk about FSD if I forget about it, because you said something that, removing the nag. I'll get to that. But first thing, you're the first person I've heard that it's going to be lower than 25,000. I hope you're right. This could be a good call on your part. But he did say 50% off, right? Cost?
Half the cost.
Half the cost, but it depends on when he said it. It could have been that at that time the Model 3 was still over 40,
No, it was after the Model 3 was already under 40. In China, the Model 3 at the time was around $35,000.
It was already lower in China. That's correct. So that's very interesting. Okay, that would be very cool if it was under 25,000. Now he didn't say that he was walking
20.
the line.
Under 20.
Under 20. Okay, that's what you'll say. He didn't say that he was walking the line in March in the book. He said that they were doing the plans. And I know that in just the Sandy Monroe interview, he said that he's, reviewing the plans every week. But you're right. That could be further ahead. Now, I've been asking this question. I'll ask you now to a number of people because I'm very confused about it. He said that we're working on it in Giga Texas, right? And that makes sense. Actively working on it. We're really far advanced was his words. Then he was asked, and he said, well, I think it's going to come first in Giga Texas and then second in Giga Mexico. And then the couple days later, local media in Giga Shanghai said that they're going to move forward with creating that factory, the new space, expansion space, which is going to be dedicated to the $25,000 car, the compact car. So we would assume that Shanghai is going to be built faster than Giga Mexico. Now, Giga Mexico did get its approval, it did get its permits, and they're ready to go, but it's interesting that he said, I thought very confidently, Giga Mexico's next. How did you interpret his comment there?
I don't place a lot of weight on that. I mean, we saw permits filed for Berlin as well for an additional 500,000 vehicles, and that's obviously going to be the next gen vehicle. I would bet on Shanghai. I would
Yes.
bet on Shanghai being ahead of Mexico for a variety of reasons. And let's suppose they let Mexico go second, and a day later Shanghai opens. But there's no the odds of building a factory in Mexico faster than you're building a factory in Shanghai seem fantastical. Um, I would expect Shanghai to get built faster. I would expect the Shanghai team to be like, we're going to beat them. We're going to beat
Yeah.
everybody. They probably want to get the Shanghai factory going before Texas.
Yeah, and in fact, I'm sure there, Tom Ju and a lot of Shanghai employees were at Giga Texas, and even people from Giga Berlin. So another question on the next gem. Some people believe, and I don't know where they got this from, but this is a common theme at this point. People are saying that they're not going to do a reveal of the Gen 3 car, the compact car, until it's very close to production. They're not going to announce it 2024. They're going to do this big event. They're going to show it to us, and then it won't be produced until the end of 2025. Um, but you think that they are going to do a reveal in 2024, if I interpreted what you just said.
I think they're going to do a reveal and say we're taking orders and we're starting manufacturing next week. I think that I don't know
What?
when.
Wait. Like, what? How can you take that? What? Excuse me.
I
What?
think that they will. They have been sandbagging us on the next generation vehicle for a while. They sandbagged us on Model Y. Remember, Model Y came earlier than people thought.
All right.
Model Y came earlier than they said it was going to come. And the people who were third row Tesla, the
Yeah.
original third row Tesla people, they were in the third row, and there were people on the board that were like, and they could hear the people on the
Right.
board giggling
Mm-hmm.
about. They knew that Model Y was coming quicker. And in the Q3, I think it was either the Q2 or the Q3 earnings call, they were talking about how Cybertruck's difficult to manufacture, and it kind of got cut off in the call, but they sounded like the next gen vehicle is going to be much easier to manufacture than Cybertruck. It's going
Mm-hmm.
to be much easier to ramp than Cybertruck because
Mm-hmm.
it's not nearly as complicated of a technology. They're not The vehicle
Mm-hmm.
isn't challenging. I mean, I think the manufacturing process is very different, but what they're making, they described it as utilitarian. That was a really
Mm-hmm.
interesting word to use. I don't think the next gen, for example, my guess is next gen vehicle will not be dual motor.
Right.
It's going to be single motor vehicle. It's going to be, front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, whatever. Um, that is going to be an ultra simple vehicle in a lot of ways. And, and Elon talked about it with Sandy Monroe that the manufacturing process is going to be like something nobody's ever seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And when Baglino said that, by the way, it was half the cost, half the factory footprint, twice the output,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
double the speed. So and the reason why the next generation vehicle is so important to the future of the company is Model Y sells, I don't know, 1.5 million units a year. It's over 1 million units a year. I may be close. I think a long-term prospect for Model Y is 1.5 million units. Cybertruck, they're talking about 200,000. I think they could get to 500,000. Some people think they can get to 1 million. But the next
Mm-hmm.
generation vehicle is going to be like 8 million units. And if you
Mm-hmm.
deliver that thing for under $20,000, anywhere in the
Mm-hmm.
world, that becomes a huge seller. Um, but if you deliver it under $20,000 in the United States, you get a $7,500 tax credit. Like, who's buying another car? Like,
Yeah.
at the low end, if you're going to buy a high end vehicle, you're going to buy a high end vehicle. But if you're going to buy a Corolla, if you're going to buy a Rav4, if they make a Corolla size
Mm-hmm.
version and a Rav4 size version, and all of a sudden you can get something like the Corolla size version would be under 20,000, the Rav4 version would be under 25, right? You're effectively getting these vehicles under $20,000. Why would you buy a Corolla? Why would you buy a RAV4? Why would you buy a Mazda 3? Why, all these vehicles that are being bought now, and even the Toyota Yaris, like there's all these like smaller format vehicles, Civics. You'd have to be crazy to buy those vehicles at that point because it costs you less money up front and it costs you less money to own it. I, do
Yeah.
they need
It's
an
getting
ad
big.
campaign to say save money? I guess, but that once that word gets out, and that if you start doing the counting in your heads and you say, well, wait a minute, they're going to sell a ridiculous volume of these vehicles, right? And if you figure out they're going to sell a ridiculous volume of these vehicles, and you're like, okay, well, how much money is that? Like, all of a sudden your revenue numbers for Tesla, like you sell 8 million vehicles at $20,000. Let's say the average selling price is $20,000, right? Isn't that like $160 billion? I have to wrap my head around the numbers. I'm not sure how big those numbers are.
Okay. I've got a pro and a con to support what you're saying.
Yeah,
All right. So you're the first person again. I love
160
you,
billion.
Warren, love you. You're first person I've heard tell me that you believe that the next gen compact car could actually be ready for sale in 2024, as opposed to what almost all of us believe is end of 2025. Okay. One supporting reason to support what you just said is that I just interviewed Joe Techmeyer. Joe is very well known because he does these drone videos on the Giga Texas factory every 2 days. He goes out there and he tracks everything that's coming in, coming out of the factory. And he has seen permits being filed several months ago, number one. And two, everything he tracks, he says in that interview, he basically says that it's way more than just what's needed for the Cybertruck. And he also was predicting that the pilot line, production line for the Gen 3 is already built, as opposed to what the comments that Elon said, which is just the plans. Just clearly, I'm just reviewing the plans. He believes that there's already a space, and he kind of outlined where he thinks it's already built. That's one supports what you just said. The other
Yeah,
thing that
I
doesn't
just have to
support,
disagree with you on something. I have to disagree with you
uh
what you said earlier, and I haven't read the biography in a couple of months now. But my recollection of the biography was not he was reviewing plans. He was actually walking the line. That's my
let
recollection
me
of the
look at the,
biography.
yeah.
That he
Okay.
was walking the line. So I think that
No,
they have a
I'll
pilot
look
line
at it
that's
again.
up, and
Yeah.
it's close to go. And keep in mind, what did they say? Half the footprint. So it doesn't need a lot of room.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
And
believe
then
it's going to use
the
lithium
other,
iron phosphate batteries. That may interfere with the tax credit if it uses Chinese lithium iron phosphate batteries. That may interfere with the tax credit. Are they going to find a way to manufacture lithium iron phosphate batteries in the U.S., which that brings you into the $7,500 tax credit? Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the challenges. Like, probably one of the biggest challenges is in the U.S. Can you manufacture lithium iron phosphate batteries here and thus support? And that doesn't have to be right away, right? That could be 2 years from now when you're manufacturing a much larger scale. Then you roll in that tax credit becomes a big deal. So I think that's another thing we might look for. This is like wild
mm,
speculation now because they've said nothing
yeah,
about it.
yeah,
I
the
would say there's been
batteries.
hints of it, but at best it's hints that we're going to see that Tesla's going to manufacture lithium iron phosphate
Well,
batteries in the United States.
that's another thing that goes against what you're saying. They may not be ready to do that at scale by next year. The other thing that could support what you're saying is Dr. John Gibbs of Dr. Know It All, and I've been supporting this idea for quite a while too. That they're not going to build the Cybertruck platform and just use it for the Cybertruck. There's going to be a lot of things under the hood that they're building that they're going to reuse for the next every generation vehicle moving forward. Um, Now, you and I debated that before. But let's, we don't know what happened there. Okay, here's the one idea why it could not happen by next year, right? Going against what you just said. The idea was that if you're going to create a affordable compact car, you need to do it at cost. Or, you need to do it at cheaper than you sell it, right? And in order to do that, you need to do it at scale as opposed to higher priced vehicles. And then Jeff Lutz, who's who's a chief executive officer of supply chain, has said a few times that, and rightly so, that for the next gen vehicle, the compact car, you can't export it. It's unlikely that Giga Shanghai is going to build it and then export it to Europe because the cost of exporting will eat into your margins, and you're already very low, very low cost. You can't do that. It's got to be built in the country that it's being sold for. Okay, and then so now what the idea then would be that if you were going to do this, when you announce that it's available, you want to have multiple factories already, almost all ready to go at the same time, so that you can build this at scale and then be able to then have the ability to have, you're not going to lose your shirt on it, right? You're not losing so much money per car yourself because this is a mass produced car. So in that case, you can't just, you got to wait until Giga Texas is up, Giga Mexico is up, Giga Shanghai is up, and then you go and announce it and make it ready to go. That's, some people are
Um,
saying that.
I don't follow you on the. I think each factory that you ramp, once you ramp it, you're making profits. The vehicle is probably not profitable the first 2 quarters, 3 quarters, and then once you ramp that individual factory, you're becoming profitable in that factory. I do think that I don't know enough to argue with Jeff about exporting from Shanghai to Europe, but like I said, permits were filed in Berlin to make the next gen vehicle. But the biggest markets for the next gen vehicle are, well,
Right.
certainly the biggest market is China. By
Yeah.
far, the biggest market is China.
Yeah.
And then I think the US is a big market. And then, of course, the next gen vehicle becomes a lot more important if you get FSD working. If
Yeah.
FSD is working and you're able to deliver robo taxis and actually build a robo taxi network, then
Yeah.
the next gen vehicle becomes important everywhere. So I think
Hmm.
there's a lot of potential there. But like Giga Mexico will probably ship to Latin America, and like to Argentina. They haven't built out a supercharger network in Latin America, by the way. So that
Right. That's why that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
well,
They're gonna.
they'll when they're ready to go. I don't think it's going to take them that long to build out the supercharger network.
Hmm.
They're good at that. But yeah, I'm a little puzzled about why Giga Mexico matters so much. Like, I think they told us that Giga Mexico will not send vehicles to the United States, so Giga Texas will make vehicles for the United States. I'm not sure how big the market is in the United States for low end vehicles like that,
Right.
but I think the market will grow a lot if you sell them for under 20 grand. I think that will make a dent. But the biggest market's clearly China, and then Europe's a big market, but I think Berlin will probably make enough for Europe. And then, what Tesla does is they export what they have to fill whatever the gaps are. And if Shanghai becomes hyper productive, then I'm not. What was Jeff's reason for why shipping them would be?
Yeah. Just the
I
shipping
mean,
costs. Yeah. It just makes sense to make it at local. And then
that's
yeah.
Elon's theory, right? Elon's always said we want to,
Mhm.
minimize the distance that the molecules have to travel, right? You want to make everything local and distribute it local, and then your molecules don't have to travel as far, and that's inherently less expensive. So I think that's the goal, but I think it's still, if there's a lot of demand in Europe for the vehicles and Berlin can't make them fast enough and Shanghai can deliver them, as long as they can deliver them at a profit, they're going to do it.
Okay. Wow. Okay. This is very interesting. You actually think it's going to be possibly for sale next year. Big deal.
I would say that it's likely we're going to see some news in some depth about the vehicle. And then the question is, how soon do they start manufacturing? How soon do they start delivering it? If they've started working on the line in the summer of 2023,
Mm.
then I think it's likely they'll be manufacturing by fall of 2024. And it might. And so, by the way, Joe had this. What I saw from Joe Tetmeyer was there's all this stuff outside. There's all this stuff that's going into the factory, and
Hmm.
then there's all this stuff waiting outside the factory. And the funny thing is, I was there. I walked all around Giga Texas for the
Yeah.
shareholder meeting, and there was all this space and there was a bunch of stuff. But Joe's video, like, there was so much more stuff outside than when I was walking around before.
Hmm.
They're really loading up. There's a whole lot going. That building is way bigger than people realize. There's a whole
Yeah.
lot of room in there to do a whole lot of stuff. And if they've stopped making the Model Y structural pack in Texas, they're making Model Y in Texas, but they had two separate lines for it. They had the lines for the the rear casting Model Y, and they had the line for the front and rear casting with the structural pack. They stopped making the one with the structural pack. Well, that frees up a lot of space. So, what are they doing with that space? Is
Mm.
that where the next gen vehicle's going? Are they turning that into a line for more Model Ys? And then I don't know where the other space is. I know they're expanding the Texas factory. Then another thing, by the way, we haven't talked about is they're supposed to expand Giga Nevada, and we haven't seen
Hmm.
any. I don't think we've seen anything
Right.
happen with Giga Nevada yet.
Yeah. Exactly. True.
I'm not sure what's going on. I don't think it's hard to get permits in Nevada. So I'm a little surprised that we haven't seen progress on Nevada yet. I
Hmm.
would say I'm actually a little disappointed that we
Hmm.
haven't seen movement on Giga Nevada yet.
Yeah. That's why I was asking you about the batteries, and that could
And
be.
I'm
I mean,
sorry,
if you need to do scale. Hmm.
you asked me about bot. I
I
don't
want.
think we're
I'm
going.
about to ask you about bot. How did you read my mind? Yeah.
Well, you mentioned it earlier, and I don't think that. I think bot is very, very big for Tesla's long-term future. I don't
Hmm.
think anybody on Wall Street, with the possible exception of, not on Wall Street, but Kathy Wood,
Agreed.
ARK Invest.
Yeah.
Outside of
Yeah.
Kathy Wood and ARK Invest, I haven't seen anybody who has any sense of the value that bot delivers. Dave Lee gets it. Dave Lee and I talked
Of
about it like
course.
2 years ago.
Hmm.
The value proposition of bot is huge, but I don't think we're going to see. We're certainly not going to see deliveries in 2024. I think the question is, now that they've got this next generation of bot that they just revealed, are they going to manufacture them in some volume? I'm not saying they're going to make a million of them, but are they going to make? Let's say they're going to make 100,000, right? And this is one of those things where, like, what do you need to make bot work better? You need to generate a lot of data, right? Because it
Hmm.
depends on AI training to make bot work better. So if you only make 100 of them, you're not generating a lot of data. And let's say you made 100,000, and let's say they cost $10,000 a piece when you manufacture them at that scale, which I don't think is crazy. If
No,
it's
not at all.
much lighter weight, it's much less components than Model 3. And Model
Hmm.
3 costs, let's say, $30,000 to manufacture, so one third the cost to manufacture Model 3. That's pretty straightforward. If you made 100,000 at $10,000 a piece, that's $1 billion. That's like nothing for Tesla
Hmm.
to spend $1 billion to make the bots, and now you're generating a massive amount of data. So if you ramp Dojo and you increase your supercomputer clusters, maybe they get more H100 GPUs from NVIDIA. Now you're getting a lot more data from bots. And I'm sorry, I got to make my pitch. I don't think Elon listens to us, but I want to see a bot beta program. I'm going to ask you, if they
Yeah,
offered
I know.
you, you could buy a
Yes, yes,
bot,
yes.
you could buy a beta bot for 25 grand and only cost them 10,000 to make it. Would you buy one? I would buy one.
We would all buy one, but we don't. Okay,
How
so
many could
you and
they
I,
sell?
you and I discussed this before. If they
Yeah.
make 100,000 bots, I don't think that they need to or should release this or sell it to consumers. This is all going to go to factories, and it's going to be almost all Tesla's factories, and then Tesla suppliers next. And then they will reduce based on that. They don't need to make revenue. They just need to reduce their gross margin, the cost of their employees that they don't have to hire or they replace. It's going to show up as auto gross margin reduction. Um, Cost of goods go down. Everything goes down. I that's where you do it. You don't need. I don't think they're going to sell it to consumers for years.
I don't think they can use 100,000 bots in their factories, even with their suppliers. And there's a key point here, which is you want to generate a lot of variable data. You want, like, edge cases, and you want to expose it to a lot of different environments, not just walking on a concrete floor in a factory. And so if you, again, like,
Yeah, I
this is
understand what
my
you're saying.
fantasy. I don't think it's,
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's actually like, it has a gross margin positive. If they sell them for $25,000 a piece, they could easily
Hmm.
sell 10,000,
Right.
right? There's no question they would sell 10,000 bots like in a heartbeat at $25,000, but I think they
Well,
could sell 100,000, and that's
this
a
is
huge
another one
value.
where you and I disagree because we don't many of us don't believe they're going to need to sell it. It's all going to be leased. They don't want other individuals to own it or corporations to own it, and then I'm going to buy 1,000 of them, and I have my little bot army that are going to attack my city and own the city. It's not going to happen. It's all going to be leased.
I could see that model. I'm just saying, in the early days, before it's really a viable product that people can use in a meaningful way, it's just more like a toy. You and I would buy it as a toy. We would take it walking with us
Right.
to the grocery store and say, "Hey, go get me a half gallon of milk," right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe it succeeds and maybe it doesn't, right? Go get me a dozen eggs, right? Um,
Yeah.
I don't think it's crazy to say you walk into the grocery store with a bot and tell it to go, like, just like you what my your wife would tell you, "Hey, go get a dozen eggs." You just tell bot, "Go get a dozen eggs."
No.
That use case of giving it all those different tasks to do, spread over a wide variety of tasks. Yeah, I think that generates the kind of data. Now you're walking on a tile floor. Now you're walking somewhere else. You're on a dirt floor. You're walking somewhere else. You're walking up hills. Exposing it to all those different environments generates more data of more edge cases, more a variety of cases that leads to bot becoming better. And
Yeah.
I'm with you long term. Long term, it makes sense to not sell them to consumers, to lease them out. Um, But short term, to create a bot beta program is a good way of getting like a massive data generation.
Just like
I'm
they did with
a little
FSD.
worried
Yeah.
what Jeremy Judkins would do with his bot. That's the one fear, is what would Jeremy Judkins do with his bot?
Okay.
That's the fear.
Sure. This is a mutual acquaintance of ours. So
Yeah.
people watching this video don't need to know who they is. Okay. Interesting. Um, yeah, no, the bot. I mean, so you saw the bot video, right? Obviously, we were almost all of us were very shocked and surprised how quickly they improved it in just 9 months from Gen 1 to Gen 2. I mean, I don't know if anybody else could argue that in 9 months they gave finger sensing, they were able to do, the 30% faster speed. They reduced 22 pounds of the bot, and it just looks sleeker. They hid all the cables, and some people were saying, Dr. Scott Walter was saying that you actually saw the Tesla logo on the bot, and you don't do that until you're like you never saw that in the previous prototypes because you don't bother. You're like basically still taking parts apart and fixing everything and moving forward. Now it looks like it's almost ready for prototype or testing, like you're saying.
Well, here's a
And
question for you. Does bot become a commercially viable product before FSD
yeah,
becomes a commercially
so
viable
yeah,
product?
Warren, I've been saying this for 6 months, a year, and everybody argues with me. I mean, like, Robotaxi, I do FSD beta. I've been playing it. I get that it's right out there and it's going to happen. It's just that I think the bot is so much easier. It is like, I don't know, 10 times easier, 50 times easier than FSD, right? It's like, I've been saying that you can have 500 bots by 3 months from now working in a factory in Tesla, and they would just do pick and place. They would just be constrained to like a 6 foot area. They grab something, they put something there, and that's all they do. So why is that not? It's already a viable product today. Is what I've been saying. There's already bots today. It's just that it's small numbers. That's how they're testing it. And I don't know why
Right.
people kept saying that it's going to be forever. And then now that they see this video comes a couple months later, now they're going, oh, I get it. Now it's possible. Everybody keeps saying it's 3 years, 5 years from now. The bot is really hard. It is so much easier than FSD because it's a constrained environment.
It's also not regulated in the same way.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about, and it's not as dangerous.
Yeah.
A car might be going 85 miles an hour on autopilot, and you've got 4,000 pounds of mass going 85 miles an hour. The kinetic energy is huge. The bot is going 5 miles an hour, weighs 125 pounds, so its kinetic energy is much lower. Its potential for causing harm is much lower.
Yeah.
And there's no NHTSA or NTSB that's going to come in here and like examine what happened after an accident. What happened? The bot fell down and somebody picked it back up. Like there's no
Yeah.
significant harm. So I think there's a lot of potential. But this is where I'm saying it becomes a commercially viable product, not internal to the company, but is it their potential that they could
I
actually sell it to
Yeah.
consumers? I know you don't
I'm
believe in selling
still
to consumers.
I don't disagree. I still disagree that I don't think they need to sell this bot at all to anybody for years. They can just keep selling it. Well, if they sold it, they would sold it to partners, supplier chain, manufacturing partners, because it's a triple whammy, right? It's like they may be able to lease it to partners and to themselves, but it's the reduction of the cost of everything that they're selling, and the cars will go down so much.
Well, how about
Labor
Frito Lay?
is the number one.
How about Frito Lay?
Like
Frito Lay buys
Pepsi,
semi.
right?
Yes, Frito Lay Pepsi buys semi. Now you bring bot in to help load and unload the trucks, to maybe plug in
See, that I
plug in the
agree. That
charger.
I'll agree. Yeah.
That's not a supplier. That's a customer.
No, I agree with you, but I just don't see consumers like this bot beta program because I don't know. I've been following how OpenAI you can now take videos off YouTube and teach a bot to do activities. But you're right, real world is different than videos, but I just don't see it being released to consumers for at least 2-3 years.
And what about
And I'm the one saying to you that I believe that the bot is actually going to be viable this year. Like it's already now viable and it's already happening in 3 months. And stop, video people who watch this, they'll always say, I'm not saying 10,000, I'm not saying 100,000, I'm saying maybe 2,000 of these bots. Like I'm just saying that they can already be useful now. You don't have to wait to anymore. Especially now you saw that video, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Elon we can say Elon's sandbagging. I think Elon cautioned that it's not useful yet. And I don't know that was a few months ago that I think somebody brought that up to him and he said it's not really there yet. But I don't remember his exact wording, and I think it's not that smart yet or something like that. I think the really interesting thing is when they put Grok on the bot.
Right.
I think the bot will have Grok installed, and how that gets integrated and what role that plays. Um, and he said Grok is improving hourly.
Hmm.
I don't understand what they're doing with Grok. I occasionally have access to. I'm in Thailand, and they discriminate against foreigners on access to Grok. But there's these weird
Are you sure?
moments where, for some
Because
reason,
you sure? Because they just released a whole list of new countries that Grok is available for just yesterday.
I
Yeah.
don't. I mean, I don't know if it was today or yesterday that I got. I think it was today. But sorry, my time today. Um, I got a notice that Grok is not working in your country.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but there are moments
Gotcha.
when I'm like out on my phone and it appears on my phone while I'm on a cell phone network and it works. And
Hmm.
then I go somewhere else and it doesn't work. So it's sort of spotty. But I'm just saying, like, I think we're going to see
Yeah.
Grok deployed on bot. Grok will be in the Tesla car. And
Hmm.
what effect will that have? How will that work? Will you just be able to ask it questions, or will you be able to say, ask it questions about the operation of the vehicle, ask it questions about, give the bot direction through Grok and have the bot answer you and act? How does that work? I use ChatGPT a lot. I use Grok only a little because it's inconsistent when it works, but they are both pretty amazing. And
Hmm.
Grok will likely, my gut hunch is Grok will be better than ChatGPT by the end of 2024. And it will be in Tesla cars and Tesla bots by the end of 2024. And what impact does that have on the usefulness of a Tesla car? I don't know how to weight that. I don't know how to put a sense on that. And we'll probably have the X app in Tesla cars as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be huge, right? I mean, I don't know, like you said, it's not going to sell more cars per se, but if I'm using my car and I just say, turn on the windshield wipers, I should just verbally be able to say it. I don't need to press a button, and it's pretty spotty right now the way that works on our Teslas now. But if you can just say it and you know, take me
Well,
to
not only that,
McDonald's,
think
yeah,
about like how with Dolly, you can say make it more aggressive. You can say make it funnier, make it funnier, make it whatever. There's these things people say, make a picture of blah blah blah.
right,
Okay, make
yeah,
it prettier, make it even prettier, make it super pretty, whatever.
yeah,
Maybe you're talking to the car and you say, I want the wipers a little bit slower. No, just a little bit slower.
just
Okay, a little bit
yeah, just
faster.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
right now the interface for make the wipers faster is very clunky. I
yeah.
could see where using Grok for that purpose could be a lot more effective. And I'm trying to wrap my head around how Grok could control the car in a way you probably wouldn't want to have access to the driving functions,
Right.
right?
Turn right, turn left, yeah.
But I think you're wrong. I think that could be a really big value add to
Mm,
the car if it
hmm,
makes
hmm,
the car more usable, if it makes it better to be in the car.
hmm. Well,
And
voice
honestly, like,
voice communication is the easiest thing, right? So if my wife, who's never driven a Tesla, comes in and it can control it just by voice, she would be shocked. She would be excited. She would be happy. It would be so easy, right? Open the doors, open the glove box, um, take me, give me the map to, and then you can ask it any question too, right? You can basically say, what's the population of India? And then they can answer it right away, right then and there. That will change just everything.
I just think like if you're on a long drive, then having a conversation with Grok might actually make the drive more relaxing and more interesting. And then also you're sort of like, I'm getting hungry. Is there a McDonald's up ahead?
Right. That's right.
You
That's what I'm
know,
saying. Yeah.
where
Yeah.
that and having Grok's going to be able to answer that question better than the existing software. So
Yeah. Faster than an iPhone, better than thumb typing it in. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so that's interesting. But yeah. Okay. So we talked bot. We talked about. Have you heard about Dojo?
Oh
So
yeah.
when Dojo is obviously they're investing heavily, right? They said they're going to put in $2 billion 2023. and then they're going to put $2 billion 2024. They started buying the NVIDIA clusters. They now have 3 supercomputers, and they have a plan to 20x the compute by the end of 2024. But then we had Ganesh. Uh, I can't remember his last name. He was let go, or he left as the head of Dojo, but we got Peter Bannon now in there. And then just a few days ago, there was a discovery that in the career page of Tesla, under the Dojo section, it had a line there that we need people that can help us create APIs to let Dojo be used as a service. I don't think they use the word as a service, but Dojo to the rest of the world, right? To make it available for the rest of the world, which is an indication that Dojo as a service, which is anybody or countries, companies can buy Dojo, access to Dojo's supercomputer capabilities. This lets Tesla make billions and millions of dollars by renting out the space and the compute power. What's your thinking about Dojo?
Right. So the other thing I would mention is there was a post by Steve Jurvetson. Are you familiar with Steve Jurvetson?
I
He's
saw
one of
I saw
the
your tweet, yeah, your
yeah.
post
So
on that.
Steve
I saw that.
Jurvetson said,
Yeah,
I may
he's a
be
venture
reading too much
capitalist.
into his post, but it sounded
Hmm.
like they already have an exapod up and running. An exap. So
Hmm.
sorry for the audience. The chip there's the Dojo chip. Then there's the Dojo tile, which is I think 9 chips. Then there's the Dojo tray, which is 2 tiles. Then there's the Dojo cabinet, which I think is six, the 3 trays, so 6 tiles. I may be wrong on the numbers, but it's something like that. But an exapod is like 7 cabinets or nine or 10 cabinets or something like that. And I thought Jurvetson said that they have a function. I'm
Okay.
if you're reading him liberally, they have an exapod up and running,
Hmm.
which is a huge amount of compute. And you know, they tend to ramp exponentially, so it's not long before the 20x compute is when they have 10, 7 or 10 exapods running,
Hmm.
right? So that I think is happening. Now, to your point, I'm a big believer in Dojo as a service. I believe Elon said it once before, Dojo as a service. If they're able to scale um, Dojo, and then there's the thing that we don't know about is there's a version 2 of Dojo coming. There's been some hints
Yes.
about that. The
Yes.
current Dojo is optimized for video training,
Video.
and
Hmm.
and they will continue to build that, and they will continue to do that. But there's a next version of Dojo coming, the Dojo chip coming, that is more general for AI training, and NVIDIA is something like $1 trillion company, and if NVIDIA is $1 trillion company and Dojo ends up being the closest competition to or superior to NVIDIA, and you set it up so that you're offering Dojo as a service, so you're bringing in value add from provide, because NVIDIA is primarily making money from the hardware and some level of software that goes with the hardware. But to my knowledge, NVIDIA is not running a large business of cloud AI training as a service.
Right.
They may be doing it a little,
Right.
but I don't think it's a big business. If Tesla is able to come along and offer AI training as a service at high volume at low cost, right? If they're able to be cost competitive on providing AI training as a service, I think that ends up making just the Dojo part of Tesla worth more than Nvidia. And Nvidia is $1 trillion company. So Dojo alone may be $1 trillion company inside
Hmm.
Tesla, which is currently a $750 billion company. Not to say that it's $1 trillion company now, but
Hmm.
in 2 years,
Hmm.
Dojo may be $1 trillion company operating within Tesla. And sorry, I had one other thing. Going back to something you asked me earlier, catalysts, if we can use that word for 2024. I hate the word catalysts, but
Hmm.
Starship and Neuralink are
Hmm.
both potential catalysts for Tesla. When
What?
when SpaceX does something amazing, it
Hmm.
reflects on Tesla. When when Neuralink, when we see the first patients with Neuralink, and I've talked to, do you know Ryan Tanaka from Neuro? He
Of
has the
course, yeah.
Neuropod
I've
channel.
interviewed him. Yeah.
So Ryan and I talked about this. I think there's going to be this moment where they have the first 3 patients and
Hmm.
they have meaningful improvement in their quality of life. And
Hmm.
I think Neuralink is smart enough to do this. They're going to do a documentary style video
Hmm.
that they'll be able to publish showing, and it's like
Hmm.
one of those dramatic,
Yeah.
videos that network
Tear-jerking.
TV
Yeah.
will put on, where you see what
Yeah.
their life was like. It's like a 30 for 30 ESPN thing with this dramatic story. And it's like, you're going to have this person here, they were in the prime of their life, and then they had it
Yeah.
all taken away by some
Yeah.
accident. And now
Yeah.
all of a sudden, they've regained this massive ability to communicate with their friends and family, and they're
Mhm.
playing video games with their friends, and they're better than all their
Mhm.
friends at this video game because they have higher bandwidth. Um, that reflects on Tesla. When Starship, I think we'll see the second stage of Starship pull off a landing, bringing a Starship back from orbit and landing it safely and reusing it in 2024. I think we will see that in 2024. So bringing back the booster, getting a payload into orbit, those are big. But I don't know if you remember December 21, 2015, when that first booster landed.
Mhm. Oh yeah,
Um,
we are screaming. Yes, that was a big moment.
and that that got me to buy the stock. I started
Interesting.
buying stock 3 months later. That was
Interesting.
the thing. It's like,
That's
if
why
they
you
can do
believe
that,
this.
and
Okay.
if you see it, there's a section of the public that just simply does not grasp the
True.
technological change that we're talking about. But there's a
Okay.
section of the public that does. And if you bring a Starship back and you land it, and then the really game changing thing would be if the chopsticks catch the booster and the chopsticks catch the Starship, and the next day they launch again.
Yeah.
At some point, people have to figure out, wait a minute, that's amazing. And a company that can do that, that's Elon's company. I think that's something that can filter back, and
Mm.
that
Okay.
makes more investors say, I want a piece of that. That's really, like, people constantly, I don't know if you get people asking you this. People are constantly asking me, how do I invest in SpaceX? How do I invest in Neuralink? How do I invest in
Yes.
Boring Company? And my
Yeah.
response is always, look, there's all these things hoops you can jump through to invest in these companies. And I've looked at that. And after I looked at everything, I said, I'm just going to invest in Tesla, because I don't have to jump through the hoops to
Mm.
invest in Tesla. I just buy the stock. So I think that success with Starship will drive a lot of attention. That success with Neuralink will drive a lot of attention. It'll also be something where, particularly with Neuralink, there's all this FUD, particularly targeting Elon as this bad, evil man. And I'm trying to figure out how they're going to spin taking a paralyzed person and enabling them to operate a computer again, and how they'll somehow spin that as evil Elon,
All the
right?
monkeys that was killed to get there. That's what they're doing now.
Yeah, yeah. But what I'm saying is that video that
Yeah.
shows this game changing
Yeah.
improvement in this
Life changing.
individual's life, and it might be like three
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
That's going to get more views than CNN
Yeah.
and Fox
Yes.
News and whoever else is bashing Bloomberg, whatever. That's going to get that's going to get 100. Joe Rogan's going to be talking about it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Um, every major influencer is going to be talking about it. That's the kind of game changer. And I should say also, the Cybertruck impact on the brand, not the
Yes.
Cybertruck sales. I think Cybertruck sales could be somewhat significant, but keep in mind, Elon said Cybertruck will not be material to the company in
Yeah.
2024.
Right.
He's really
Mm-hmm.
downplaying Cybertruck,
Mm-hmm.
but the Cybertruck impact on brand, um,
Yeah.
driving
That's for
value
sure.
into the brand, is pretty significant as well. So there's a whole bunch of things that come together. I just want to be clear, though. I don't make short-term predictions about the stock price.
Right.
I don't really care that much about the stock price. I'm an all-in investor, but I'm not planning to sell till 2030. And when you look
Yeah.
at, has the company grown? Is the company growing? And I do think 2024 will be a slow year for company growth. Revenue growth will be less than 50% in 2024 versus 2023. It's really the setup for 2025 and then 2026, when the next generation vehicle ramps. And then there's this open question that you and I both have: when does FSD become a reality? FSD becoming a reality, bot becoming a reality, those are like game changing value adds. Those are the things that drive Tesla stock to 10x or more,
Do you know when they
right?
become a reality? They'll become a reality when Dojo becomes a reality. When Dojo is 20x by the end of 2024, at some point in the middle of that progress, they will have enough compute, supercompute, to be able to solve FSD faster, quicker, to solve the bot. It's all AI driven, right? We all
Yeah.
saw the demo of the bot. And I think at this point, when you see the dexterity of the fingers, the movement of the body, the ability to walk, the hardware is well progressing to the point that it's usable. The question everybody now has is, can you teach it to do something? And if that's my argument. My argument is that actually it's not compute constrained to be able to teach it simple tasks, especially just pick and place. But yeah, it's not going to be able to, I don't know, cook you a dinner yet, but it can once you get Dojo computed up so high. And that's the only thing that's holding back FSD version 12 would be data and compute to be able to get the best data to teach it. So, somewhere halfway through 2024, if they're able to continue to invest, to be able to do this in supercompute.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
I don't think they're investing enough. $2 billion a year is nowhere near Microsoft investing $50 billion a year.
well, Tesla invests more efficiently than Microsoft, but
People say that.
and Microsoft is spending, I think, all that money. Are they buying A100s or H100s? What are they spending the 50 billion on?
So yeah, data centers. It's a data center.
Right.
Absolutely. They're
But
going to be a competitor to Nvidia. The Nvidia has the only chip manufacturer today, but within a year or two, Google's doing it, Microsoft doing it, a bunch of other companies doing it.
you actually
Tesla
you triggered something in me. So
triggered you.
if you're following
Okay.
Elon, one of the things that Elon said is that there's a voltage transformer shortage looming. I
Yes.
think it's already
Yes.
here, actually. Although he says it's
Yes.
next year. I have a friend who works for a
Yes.
company that does a lot of electrical
Yep.
installs, hardware
Electricity
installs.
is going to be the new gold, is what he tweeted out,
Well,
a few months
but
ago, a
there's
month
the
ago.
transformers. There's a shortage for that right now, and for the next year, and then after that, there's a shortage of electricity generation.
Yes.
So what we know about Tesla is they get ahead of these things. So they're probably planning on manufacturing their own transformers. When there's a
Yep.
supply chain shortage, what does Tesla do? They make their own. And they certainly have the technical sophistication to make a high volume of
They
transformers. And I
do.
think
No
there's
one else
multiple
can.
levels. And
Yes.
then electricity generation, well, Tesla's already deploying solar at a fairly large scale. I think we can probably look to see Tesla start to deploy massive solar farms to go
Thank
along with
you.
their massive energy
I've been
energy
saying that
storage.
there's going to be an announcement of a massive solar farm, and everybody said they're not going to get into solar farms because it's a commodity. They can't make money out of it. And I'm going, if you listen to Master Plan Part 3, there's 3 pillars. The first pillar is energy generation. Tesla does nothing in energy generation. The sun is the best way to get energy. Elon has been talking about it. Why does Tesla not have a solar farm to capture all of that energy? And that's why he's walking around to every country. He's going to sell them all mega pack factories, but he needs to build solar farms. And he's going to announce that. I've been saying this for
Yeah,
half a
but
year,
I want to
almost a
be clear
year.
about that. I'm not saying they build solar farms to sell electricity to other people. I'm saying
Yeah,
they
they
build
need it for
solar farms
themselves.
to supply electricity to Dojo, to supply electricity to Tesla. Like
If you're
I
going to
think
do
they're
it,
doing
you're
70.
going to think big, dude. So,
I think they're doing 70 megawatts of solar on the roof of Giga Texas. They're going to do
yes.
similar amount of solar on the roof of Giga Nevada. They'll probably put solar on the roof of Giga Shanghai if they haven't already.
For
But I
sure.
think wherever Dojo is going to be, I think we're probably going. I think it's in Palo Alto right now. I don't know
Yeah.
if the long term plan is to have
Yeah.
Dojo in California or have it somewhere else, but you want to have it somewhere near it has access to a lot of electricity.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
do think we're going
Elon
to
has
see
said,
solar.
right? Yeah. Elon
What's that?
said, right, that Elon has said in an interview, he said these data centers, if you need to shut down a rogue AGI, first of all, you'll know where it is because its data center is going to be massive and you can see it from space. You'll see the lights because it requires tremendous amount of electricity. You would shut that thing down and then you shut down an AGI. It's not like you can, and so it's going to take so much electricity that you need to have energy generation next door and you need batteries next door and you need the supercomputers. And so who has all this? Tesla.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that but my point about that is when you say that Microsoft is investing $50 billion to build data centers, and these other companies are investing to build data centers, are they also investing in voltage transformers? Are
Right.
they also, do they have a secure supply chain for voltage transformers? Do they have a secure source of electricity for all the data centers that they're building? And Elon said, and I think that in today's world, these data centers are about 1% of energy usage in the United States. But if they
Mhm.
20x, right? Well, then they become 20% of the electricity usage of the United States fairly quickly, and they may 50x. So the impact of these data centers on the grid, people are talking about what's the impact of EVs on
On
the
the
grid. Like,
cars.
you guys are missing the story completely. EVs aren't a big impact on the grid because they charge at night mostly. But
Yeah.
these data centers, they're running
Yeah.
24/7.
Yeah.
So, and they need electricity at night. That's why you need mega packs. I
They need
don't know to what
free
extent
electricity. Yeah. They
I
need
don't know to
free
what extent
electricity.
Microsoft and Google
Yeah.
and Meta and these other companies that are OpenAI that are building these large data centers, I don't know to what extent that they have locked down their supply chain for voltage transformers and electricity generation. That's a big potential problem for them. And it's not a big problem for Tesla because Tesla, we've just seen that Tesla thinks ahead on things like this. Yeah.
Love it. Uh, has any of your models that you have the battery model that you've been working on, has any of that changed based on what happened in 2024
So what the big thing that
or
affects the battery
2023?
revenue,
Sorry.
right. The big thing that
Yeah.
affects the battery revenue model is the battery revenue model is premised. The short version of the battery revenue model is how many batteries, how many gigawatt hours of batteries does Tesla use in the products it's selling to customers, and what's the price per gigawatt hour. So when you go down to the kilowatt hour level, Tesla's products have historically been priced at over $500 a kilowatt hour of battery content. So if you have a hypothetical Model 3, this doesn't really exist, but let's say you have a Model 3 that has a 60 kilowatt hour battery pack and you sell it for $30,000, that's $500 a kilowatt hour. Generally speaking, Tesla cars sell for significantly more than $500 a kilowatt hour. They sell,
Mhm.
so the Model Y with a 82 kilowatt hour pack selling for, let's say, $50,000, right? That's $600 a kilowatt hour, $650 a kilowatt hour. So far, all the Tesla vehicles are still selling at over $500 a kilowatt hour. There may be a rare exception, but I think that's pretty consistent. But Megapack was selling at about $500 a kilowatt hour, and they have really significantly lowered prices of Megapack to where I think that is now selling for less than $400 a kilowatt hour. So when you go out to the future, and I'm not saying 2024, but maybe 2025 or 2026, Megapack starts to put downward pressure on that $500 kilowatt hour price point for my battery revenue model. And then you sort of just, you still have this question, how many batteries does Tesla use? I think heading out to 2030, they're looking at over a terawatt hour of batteries, of products being sold that contain batteries, over a terawatt hour of products. So if you're doing $500 a kilowatt hour, that's $500,000 a megawatt hour. It's $500 million a gigawatt hour, and it's $500 billion a terawatt hour. So it's $500 billion in revenue or more. That's leaving out robotaxi. That's leaving out bot, whatever. And $500 billion is 5x what Tesla's revenue was last year, right? So that's pretty good growth for a company over the course of say 7 years. If the dollars per kilowatt hour falls a bit, then all of a sudden your growth in that model goes down. And again, that's leaving out the much larger gains that we're going to see from FSD and Robotaxi and Bot and Dojo, right? Now the other side of that is there may be a lot of revenue generated that doesn't use batteries at all. So when Tesla sells a solar panel, there's no batteries in it. It's associated with a power wall or it's associated with a mega pack, and that's so that can increase the dollars per kilowatt hour again. So that's the one model that I'm a little concerned
Mm.
about.
Yeah.
Robotaxi model hasn't changed. I think that at some point Tesla has a fleet of 10 million robotaxis generating $50,000 a year in gross profit each, and that's $500 billion a year in gross profit. Tesla's gross profit last year was 20 billion. So that's a 25x in gross profit.
Mhm.
And then bot, when you get to bot, you just
Yeah.
sort of get to like,
Yeah.
we don't even know how to model that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I have models for bot, and you just get to just the numbers get silly.
Yeah, yeah.
But those numbers, those models haven't changed. If you applied a leasing model, it might change a little bit, but um, it's just really quick about bot. If it costs them $10,000 to build it, and I think they probably get their manufacturing cost down to 5, but let's say it costs them $10,000 to build it, if they're able to effectively generate $100,000 in revenue over the life of the bot, one way or another, whether you sell it for $100,000 or you lease it for $10,000 a year for 10 years, if you're able to generate $100,000 in revenue, it only costs you $10,000. You have 90% gross margin.
Yeah, it's like when we calculate it with CERN Basher and the financial models, the bot can generate $30,000 to $50,000 of revenue per year. So even if it costs you $10,000-$20,000 one time, like why would you sell a car? It costs you less to build in a car, but you get the same amount of margin per year, every year, instead of just one time.
Yeah,
Um,
I think $30,000 to $50,000 in revenue might be low. Because, if it
yeah,
does 2 shifts at $20 an hour,
right.
that's
That's what we did. Yeah,
4,000 hours times
yeah,
$20 an hour. It's $80,000 a year in labor
yeah,
saved.
yeah, yeah. I know. I just we're you got to look at the
And then it does
models, and you got to
$25. And then as you train it, it does $25 an hour work. And as you train it more, it does $30 an hour work. And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. It's amazing. And so that's why I was asking you if anything changed, because amazing things, even though the stock price doesn't look like it's reflected anything, but if you step back and look at the products, the business, it's just powering through. It is amazing. The bot itself, the FSC version 12, um, it's the progress in the Model 3 or the compact car. All of
Yeah.
these things are fantastic news that the Dojo investment that they're making in Dojo, the release of Grok. These are life-changing news, and yet the stock kind of stays flat or doesn't
Well,
react to it.
wasn't there some sort of
Silly.
number that like the stock today is, no higher than it was maybe 2 years ago?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
When it
then
got into the S&P 500, it's still the same number. When it's like it's ridiculous. All these things
I
have
think
changed.
I
Yeah,
love Jason DeBolt's response. It was like, well, look, you still own the same share of the company that you owned before. And the company is making like twice as many vehicles as it owned before. And it's making like 5 times as many megapacks as it was before. And it's doing all these other things. The company that you invested in is much more valuable objectively than it was at the time you had the
yeah,
stock 2 years ago. Wall Street just doesn't understand. And at some point, Wall Street will catch up. The
yeah,
markets will catch up, and it's what are they waiting for? I don't know. It's sort of like we watch how the analysts analyze Tesla, and they don't model things in that we see. They don't model bot in. They don't model
How
robotaxi in.
can you?
They don't even do the battery revenue model, which to me, like the battery revenue model, is so blindingly obvious. Like
Yeah,
I don't understand how they don't see the battery revenue model. And then maybe they just don't see the growth, and I guess if you don't see the growth in sales of products, but like Megapack is like just a complete no-brainer.
yeah. You know,
It's obvious that the market for Megapack is insanely huge, and
yeah,
I guess they can't model the next generation vehicle until they see it, but it's pretty obvious if you follow Tesla's path. Okay, we did the Model S, and then we did the Model 3 and the Model Y, and it's not rocket science to say they're going to come up with a more efficient, lower priced vehicle. It's what they said the plan was. It's pretty obvious they're going to do it. Even if I'm wrong and it's not $20,000, if it's $25,000, like it's not rocket science to say they can make a $25,000 vehicle. Like, why would you think they couldn't?
yeah. They're
I,
supposed to be
I
forward looking in the market, but yet they wait until it's there and it's already being sold. And by that point, the stock price, is always forward looking. And so they come in late. And
yeah,
that's why the difference between us. But yeah, it's head scratching. They don't understand, but that's the difference, right? And then and also, do you believe it's going to happen just because the company says so, because the Elon says so? So let's talk about that. You have this fantastic term called STED. Smarter than Elon disease. And you've been saying this person has STED because they think that they're smarter than Elon. Now, the counter to that is many investors say, hey, I don't just listen to what a company says. Just because Elon says it, that doesn't mean they're right. Companies often make mistakes. And as an investor, I need to say they should be advertising, but they're not advertising. How dumb of them to not advertise, those kind of things. And that they laugh at people who are basically worshiping every word that Elon says, believes that 100% is going to happen, and don't think that you should be able to criticize. So you counter with, do you have STED? Or yeah, tell me what your
So
position on this is.
I technically I call it STEDs, and it's a play on STDs.
Yes.
Um, so uh, so smarter than Elon diseases are, you'll see somebody say something, and really there's a broader issue because just something that you said, you don't have to believe everything Elon says.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pay attention to the team. What does Drew Baglino say? What does
Yeah.
Martin Vieca say? What does
Yeah.
Rohan Patel say? What does Lars, I can't remember Lars's
Mo-
last. What does Lars say?
Morani, and then Tom Ju. Yeah. What did they say?
Tom Zhu, Ashok for the FSD
Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
There's so many different people. This is the thing that stands out to me about Elon companies is, yeah, Elon sometimes gets over
Yeah.
optimistic. I would go with Zach Kirkhorn too, by the way, even though he's not with the company anymore. But when it's Elon saying something and the team doesn't say it too, then
Mm-hmm.
that's a sign that maybe it's just Elon blowing smoke or being over optimistic. But when the team is saying the same things, that gives me a lot more confidence that we're closer to seeing this actually become reality. And so when they had that conversation in the Q3 earnings call and they were
Yeah.
laughing about
Mm-hmm.
the next gen vehicle being so much easier than Cybertruck, and
Yeah.
people responded to, oh, we dug our own grave with Cybertruck, like that was a negative thing. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, that's the humor of people who've been through hell and gotten through it.
Yeah.
Right. So they know, yeah, we
Agreed.
went through hell with Cybertruck and there's still a little bit more hell to come, but we've made a lot of progress here.
Yeah.
And the way they said, oh, no, like next gen vehicle is going to be easy compared to Cybertruck. Like, I feel like no one heard that. I
Yeah. I
swear to you,
agree.
it was like no one heard that. Like, they just said that the next gen vehicle is going to be easy compared to like Cybertruck's hard, but all like they've never said anything's easy. They've
Yeah.
never, they just said that's going to be easy. And it wasn't just Elon saying it. It was like
Yeah.
Elon and Drew and Lars and a
Yeah.
couple other guys laughing about it. There's something big coming there, and people aren't seeing it. But so smarter than Elon diseases is you'll see somebody say, "Oh, Tesla needs to advertise." It's like, well, there's so many examples of companies that are advertising and not seeing sales growth. There's the smarter than Elon disease problem when it comes to advertising is I've confronted certain people who say that and say, well, okay, what would the advertising be like? What there's all these different issues that you could promote about Tesla. You could, and there's this FUD out there, right? Like, oh, they use too
Mm-hmm.
much cobalt when like more than
Yeah.
half of Tesla vehicles have no cobalt in them,
Mm-hmm.
right? The lithium iron phosphate batteries don't use cobalt, right? So but the consumer doesn't care about cobalt in the car, right? The consumer doesn't care about that. There's range anxiety, there's safety concerns, there's so many different issues
Well,
that
the
you could try to
well,
address
the
with the
top two
advertising.
is price. The consumer cares about price, and they still believe Tesla is priced at 50, 60, 70 because of the years of Model S and Model 3 price at that. And two is range anxiety. So that still is prevalent. So they're saying education is important.
No, I've heard many more examples of things that Tesla needs to educate people about. And you may have your version of what the ads should be, but if you asked all the people who say Tesla should advertise, which should they focus on? And the best
Mm-hmm.
answer, my favorite answer from he who I shall not name, um, is well, they'll just hire an ad agency, let them do it. Like do you know Tesla at all? The
Okay.
company that
No.
that's vertically integrated as much as possible is going to outsource something like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
not how it
That's
works. They're going to optimize and optimize and optimize. Um, so, but it's oh, what's the other one? One of the recent ones was, oh, Tesla shouldn't have deprioritized the compact.
right.
Like, what are
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
They never. It wasn't there was somebody who said
Yeah.
it. and they said, well, they deprioritized it and you saw it here. It's like, well, did you listen to Battery Day? Battery Day was September of 2020, and Elon said about 3 years from now, which would be September of 2023. But COVID hit. COVID
Yeah,
slowed everything down about a year. So now you'd be looking at September 2024, right? Um, they never deprioritized it. It wasn't prioritized yet.
yeah.
And there's
Yeah, I know.
this.
I find that funny. I find that funny. Like I've been saying that they should have done Compact 3, but he refused to believe me and he should have listened to me. So
Yeah, there's multiple people saying they should have gotten the
yeah,
$25,000 car out sooner. It's like you don't understand. There's an engineering process.
yeah.
They're changing how they manufacture, and the goal isn't to just pump a car out there. Because if
Right.
you're short term,
Do it at
right? If
cost.
you're thinking,
Yeah.
well, I want the stock to go up in 2023, then just get a car out there, right? But if your goal is long term, we want to be able to deliver 8 million of these vehicles a year at a price point under $20,000. Well, then you really want to get your engineering process right. And like you asked me about what the constraint is. Well, they don't have enough battery supply for 8 million units a year
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
of the next
Exactly.
gen vehicle. They are
Yeah.
battery constrained in that sense that they're waiting for CATL and BYD and other suppliers to ramp, and maybe their own LFP battery production. There's a bunch of things that have to come into play in order to be able to deliver that scale of
Yeah.
of, of vehicles. But that's the if you're only looking at I want to pump the stock up next year, then maybe you pump a vehicle out. But if you want to pump up the company long term and not just pump up the company, but accelerate the transition to sustainable energy, which is the goal, right? You need to deliver a massive volume of these vehicles. And I think partly when you look at the smarter than Elon diseases, there's so many of those people who don't believe in FSD. And if you get the value that FSD delivers, that a robo-taxi network delivers, you get that there really needs to be a lot of investment in FSD. And because when you deliver FSD, that's the game changer that changes everything.
Yeah.
And if you're only looking at, well, I want the stock to 2x, next year or in the next
Right.
2 years, you're missing the 10x. You're missing the 20x. So like I think some of these smarter than Elon disease people don't think bot matters because they don't get it. And it's like, well, and again, it's not just smarter than Elon. It's like, well, you're smarter than Lars, and you're smarter than Drew, and you're smarter than Ashok, and you're smart. Like, there's a whole team there.
Yeah.
And every time I watch a Tesla presentation, like, I don't know, those guys look pretty smart to me.
Well, my answer was always like, I don't want to hash this again, but price cuts in lieu of why didn't you do advertising in lieu of price cuts in January 2023? And I'm like, do you not think that the Tesla has access to the data to do the very simple math that you just posted up saying, if you just invested this much in advertising, $100 million, you're going to be able to sell this much more. You did not need to cut the prices. You don't think that they have access to that data? They have access to all that data. There's reasons why they're cutting the price. And there's a strategic reason. And there's also a reason because, as Elon is saying, it's the monthly price that matters. And the interest rates went up. And so the prices have gone up. And all we're doing is bring the price back to the monthlies the same as it was prior to interest rates going up. But,
Yeah. Same
I
thing with
just think that
Cybertruck, by the
it's,
way. Same thing with
Mhm.
Cybertruck that they're insisting, oh, they should have gotten Cybertruck out quicker. Like they should. What was one I saw was they shouldn't have had Cybertruck rely on the 4680 cell. The 2170 cell's
right,
better. When we know that Panasonic hasn't been able to ramp up production of the 2170 cell, and
right.
having the Cybertruck using a cell made in America means you're going to get your tax credit. Like,
Yeah.
and they're continuing to iterate on the engineering of the cell, and we got a 10% or so. I think it was a 9% increase in energy density on the new generation of cell, and we know there's another generation of cell coming that they're working on in Fremont. That's probably going to be another 9% reduction increase in energy density, and that enables more performance, lower cost, and all these other things. So there's probably 3 or 4 more iterations of the 4680 cell, because Drew said the 4680 cell roadmap that they laid out on Battery Day was really for 2026, was the endpoint of
Yeah.
that what they expected
Well,
to
it's
achieve.
no doubt it's been delayed. I mean, it just, what can you're asking for 100%, performance all the time for everything. But I mean, yeah, there are mistakes. I'm not, Tesla can make mistakes. Elon definitely, he himself will tell you he makes mistakes. And
Yeah.
so some people just lump that advertising, that they think it's Elon just being stubborn and will never do advertising. And that's what frustrates the investors. At the end of the day, Model Y is still the number one sales in the world. And yes, they're going to do advertising. They will do, and let's stop talking about it, but they're already doing it, and they're going to educate. That's not the issue, but it's not in lieu of the price cuts. That's what I was trying to make sure. Now that the price of the car is at par or cheaper, more affordable than the gas cars, this is when you go and you spend the time and effort to blast it out, if you can produce that many cars. And right now, it's production constraint, not demand constraint. So, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you so much, Warren. Again, as you guys saw, Warren comes in with a lot of very out of the box thinking. Appreciate that very much. It's fun to talk to somebody who has different ideas than just most people. And you had a couple of bangers here today, and we're going to record this again like we did last time. And I may do a clip. If you're right, I'll take the clip and I'll repeat it. But if you're wrong, I might do it again.
I want to be less wrong. I want to be less wrong. ElonBits.com for the shirt.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you so much, Warren. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Herbert.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.